Easterwood Airport was never supposed to matter. A quiet regional terminal tucked inside College Station, Texas. The kind of place where nobody looks twice, where cameras don't linger, where secrets pass through unnoticed. Until the day Meghan Markle walked in alone, no convoy, no security theater, no royal choreography, just sunglasses, composure, and a leather carry-on she refused to let out of her sight. At first, it looked ordinary, almost intentionally so, a woman blending in, but witnesses would later say something felt off from the moment she approached security. Her posture was controlled, rehearsed even, but her grip on that bag was white-knuckled, not protective, possessive, as if what was inside wasn't luggage, but leverage. Then came the request. Routine. Polite. Please place the bag on the table. That's when time slowed. Her hand hesitated, just a fraction too long. The smile didn't drop, but the eyes changed. Sharp, calculating. A micro pause that only happens when someone realizes the script they wrote just got rewritten by chance. When she finally set the bag down, it was with reluctance that didn't match the moment. Security asked for a manual check. No yelling, no scene, just a flinch, and then the zipper. A shaky phone camera from a nearby passenger caught the instant the bag opened. What spilled out wasn't makeup or travel clutter. It was paper. Old paper. Too much paper. Printed emails layered with black redactions, typed letters marked up with aggressive red ink, documents organized not like memories, but like ammunition. And then the envelope. Yellowed. Frayed. Wax seal cracked, but unmistakably intentional. The moment that envelope surfaced, everything collapsed. Meghan lunged, not subtly, not gracefully. She shielded it with her body, voice rising as security asked her to remain calm. This wasn't embarrassment. This wasn't inconvenience. This was panic, the kind that comes when something meant to stay buried suddenly breathes air. The video was under 60 seconds. That's all it took. By the time the clip hit social media, the internet did what it always does best: connect dots faster than anyone in power can erase them. Hashtags exploded. Screenshots multiplied. People slowed the footage frame by frame, zooming in on the envelope, the markings, her reaction, and then, just as fast, the clip vanished. Dimka takedowns, account suspensions, quiet legal threats. But once something is seen, it's never unseen. Speculation ignited like gasoline. Was it legal material? A tell-all lawsuit blueprint? Private correspondence never meant to leave palace walls? The theories didn't matter as much as the reaction. Because Meghan Markle, media-savvy, battle-hardened, master of narrative control, had lost control for 10 raw seconds in a public airport. That alone was the story. By sundown, American outlets circled cautiously. No confirmations, no denials, just silence. And across the Atlantic, inside London's most insulated rooms, that silence wasn't passive, it was active. The clip reached Prince William before the day ended. He watched it without blinking. No commentary, no emotion, just repetition. Looping the moment her hand snapped toward the envelope. Watching the fear flash, the calculation reset, the mask returned. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't call aides into a panic. He stood, adjusted his cufflinks, and asked for the Royal Intelligence Liaison. That single request changed everything. This wasn't a family squabble anymore. This wasn't tabloid drama. Calling in that unit meant one thing: the matter had crossed from embarrassment into institutional threat. What mattered wasn't just what was inside the bag, it was how it was carried. Why walk sensitive material through a public airport alone? Why risk exposure unless the risk itself served a purpose? Was this carelessness or choreography gone wrong? Analysts who later studied the footage pointed to one detail over and over. She didn't protect the emails. She didn't reach for the marked letters. She shielded the envelope. That envelope mattered more than everything else combined. And palace insiders recognized the markings instantly. Symbols no longer used. Internal identifiers once reserved for confidential royal correspondence. The kind never digitized, the kind meant to be read, then locked away forever. Whatever that envelope was, it wasn't hers by right. And it wasn't harmless. That realization reframed everything. For months, quiet anomalies had stacked up unnoticed. travel records that didn't align, meetings with legal specialists who didn't usually represent lifestyle brands, financial flows through nonprofit shells that raised eyebrows but not alarms. On their own, meaningless. Together, unsettling. This wasn't chaos, it was positioning. The public image had always been framed as rebellion, modern woman versus ancient crown. But behind the curtain, a different shape emerged. One of preparation, documentation, pressure points cataloged and ready. And now, because of one airport scanner in Texas, the scaffolding cracked. William didn't call his father. He didn't warn anyone publicly. This wasn't about emotion or family fracture. It was constitutional instinct. He knew what paper could do. He had been warned about it as a child. Paper outlives people. Paper doesn't forget. Paper doesn't forgive. And now, someone who had walked away from duty was carrying institutional memory through U.S. airspace like personal property. That wasn't just audacity, it was dangerous. By nightfall, orders were issued quietly. No leaks, no spin, just depth. Contacts traced, origins questioned. Every angle examined with the assumption that nothing was accidental. Because if this was a test, if the bag was bait, then the response would determine whether the crown still had teeth. And somewhere far from palace walls, Meghan Markle already knew the balance had shifted. The clip was gone, but the damage wasn't. You don't unring a moment like that. You don't panic like that unless you've already run the worst case scenario in your head. She had played the narrative game for years. This time, the narrative had slipped, and the silence that followed wasn't mercy. It was containment. She moved fast, faster than anyone expected, because when control slips, speed becomes survival. Less than 48 hours after Easterwood, Meghan Markle reappeared not at an airport, not in a courtroom, but in front of a camera she controlled completely. Soft lighting, neutral tones, no journalists, no questions. Just her voice aimed straight at the public, calibrated to land exactly where logic softens and emotion takes over. English, just. She spoke of trauma, of privacy violated, of being alone, of motherhood, of fear. She never named the airport, never described the bag, never mentioned the envelope. She didn't have to. The performance was surgical. The implication clear, she wasn't hiding documents, she was protecting memories. And it worked, at least at first. Headlines bloomed like wildfire, sympathy surged, celebrities posted hearts, activist groups released vague statements about surveillance and harassment. The language was familiar because it was effective. In the American media ecosystem, emotion doesn't just soften facts, it replaces them. But behind the emotional wave, something else moved just as quickly. Cease and desist letters landed across platforms with uncanny speed. Accounts that had reposted the Easterwood clip vanished. Even private forums reported sudden takedowns. The message wasn't loud, it was chilling. Talking about that bag was dangerous, which only sharpened curiosity, because people don't silence nothing. In London, William watched the video once, no second viewing. He didn't critique the performance. He studied the timing, the pacing, the choice to bypass journalists entirely. It told him everything he needed to know. This wasn't damage control, it was preemption. Whatever was in that bag mattered enough for her to spin before anyone else could define it. He didn't respond. Silence became the counterweight. Silence that couldn't be clipped, edited, or reframed. While the public argued, unmarked vehicles rolled quietly into Easterwood Airport after midnight. No press, no spectacle, just access. Inside a sterile holding room under fluorescent light sat the object that had triggered everything the leather carry-on. Logged, sealed, untouched since the incident. William arrived without ceremony. No medals, no aides. Just two operatives and gloves pulled on slowly, deliberately. The zipper sounded louder than it should have, sharp in the quiet room. He didn't rummage, he unpacked. First, the harmless things. Chargers. wallet, cosmetics, then the folder. Initials etched neatly. Inside, clippings spanning years, most critical of the monarchy, many highlighted, annotated, cross-referenced. This wasn't grievance. This was strategy. Emails followed, printed, organized, correspondence between publicists, legal consultants, media tacticians. Notes in red ink didn't ask questions, they issued directives, timing notes, pressure points, expected outcomes, then the letters. Typed, dated, filed by theme, institutional isolation, financial injustice, media retaliation, each one ending not with reconciliation, but numbers, settlement figures, escalation thresholds, language crafted not to heal, but to exhaust. It was a campaign, one designed to grind an institution down without ever stepping into a courtroom. But all of that paled next to what rested at the bottom. The envelope. Aged, fragile, wax seal cracked. William lifted it carefully. He recognized the crest instantly. Personal royal correspondence protocol. Not ceremonial, not symbolic, functional. Used only when something was never meant to circulate, and it had been opened. That was the moment certainty replaced suspicion. Not anger, not shock, confirmation. This wasn't emotional fallout, this was leverage acquisition. Photographs came next. Printed. Dozens. Taken across years and continents. Calves. Back rooms, locations absent from any official itinerary, faces unfamiliar to royal logs, meetings that weren't supposed to exist. These weren't scandalous images. They were loaded ones. Connections. Proof of access. A map of quiet alliances. William didn't rush. He studied every frame. Then he issued instructions. The campaign materials neutralized, platforms dismantled, leverage stripped of oxygen, the photographs preserved. Because those weren't weapons meant to be fired. They were insurance. And insurance tells you everything about what someone fears. By the time William left the room, the bag was empty. But the consequences were just beginning. Back in California, Meghan felt the shift before she could articulate it. The clip was gone. Sympathy was high, but something essential was missing. Response. No palace leaks, no rebuttals, no counter narratives, no anonymous briefings feeding tabloids, just silence. And silence, when you expect reaction, becomes unbearable. She doubled down. Another video. Softer, warmer, healing language, references to resilience and legacy. Carefully placed symbolism designed to provoke empathy without addressing facts. Again, the algorithm responded. But this time, the audience hesitated. Questions crept in. Why so fast? Why so polished? Why avoid specifics? If it was nothing, why erase everything? Doubt spread quietly, the most dangerous kind. Meanwhile, in London, the scope widened. Financial trails traced through shell structures. Meetings cross-checked against burner numbers. Consulting ties surfaced. Reputation management firms specializing in destabilization modeling. None of it illegal, all of it intentional. This wasn't chaos, it was architecture. William didn't need proof of crime, he needed to protect credibility. Because the real threat wasn't scandal, it was infiltration. The idea that the monarchy could be accessed, cataloged, and pressured from the inside. So he moved without noise. Access quietly revoked, archival permissions erased, security protocols revised, titles internally reclassified, residual privileges neutralized without announcement. Then came the letter. 1 page. Clinical. Delivered through legal back channels. Not a threat. A request. Voluntary disclosure. Clarification of the Easterwood contents. An apology for misinformation, no deadline, no drama, just consequences. Meghan read it in silence. Twice. This wasn't a tabloid war, this was institutional pressure. The kind that doesn't need publicity because it doesn't intend to lose. She didn't comply, she didn't refuse, she distracted. A foundation launch. Children's initiatives. Carefully staged appearances. Positive press waves meant to drown context and sentiment. The strategy was familiar because it had worked before, but William didn't engage. He waited, because endurance beats spectacle every time. Weeks passed. Headlines shifted. The public moved on mostly. But something lingered. The Easterwood moment had exposed the mechanics behind the performance, and once choreography is seen, it can't be unseen. Meghan smiled again, appeared lighter, even joked once about extra screening at airports. But behind closed doors, the pressure tightened. Advisors rotated out. Calls shortened. Lawyers stopped promising wins and started offering timelines because she knew the truth no interview could erase. The contents of that bag no longer belonged to her. They belonged to the crown. And the crown doesn't rush. It remembers. William kept the files sealed. Not out of mercy, out of strategy. In shadow, the envelope held more power than any public reveal ever could. Because exposure ends a story. Silence controls it. And as long as that silence remained unbroken, Meghan would never know how much he knew. Only that he knew enough. That uncertainty became the real consequence. Not scandal, not humiliation. Containment. The monarchy didn't strike, it endured. And in that endurance, it reclaimed the upper hand without ever raising its voice.